The average millionaire doesn't drive a brand new luxury sports car. In fact, many rich people go out of their way to avoid buying a new one. Not because they can't afford it, but because they understand something most people don't about money, status, and control. And the real reason might completely change how you think about wealth. Today, we're uncovering the secrets of the ultra-wealthy. Why rich people avoid buying new cars. Most people believe that once you're rich, you start buying the newest cars on the market. Brand new models, custom interiors, the latest upgrades. But the truth is, many wealthy people actively avoid buying new cars. And it has nothing to do with being unable to afford them. In fact, the reason rich people avoid new cars reveals something much deeper about how they think about money, status, and control. The common belief about wealth and cars. For most people, cars are one of the clearest symbols of success. A new car represents progress. It represents achievement. It signals to others that you're doing well. Advertising reinforces this idea constantly. Luxury car commercials rarely focus on practicality. Instead, they sell emotion, prestige, and arrival. So it feels logical to assume that rich people must always be buying the newest cars. But when you look at how wealth is actually preserved, something very different starts to appear. The immediate loss nobody talks about. Imagine two people walking into a dealership. One buys a brand new $80,000 car. The other buys the exact same model, 1 year old, for $62,000. They drive the same car. They get the same features. They get the same performance. But one of them just paid $18,000 for the feeling of being first. And within a year, both cars are worth almost the same. To most people, that sounds normal. To a wealthy mindset, that sounds insane. Because that $18,000 didn't buy anything real. It didn't create value. It didn't increase freedom. It just disappeared. The first reason rich people avoid new cars is simple, but uncomfortable. The moment a new car leaves the dealership, it loses value. Not gradually, not slowly, immediately. In many cases, a new car can lose between 10 and 20% of its value in the first year alone. Wealthy people are extremely sensitive to this kind of loss, not because they can't afford it, but because they don't like unnecessary inefficiency. To them, paying full price for something that instantly drops in value feels irrational. It's not about saving money. It's about avoiding waste. Opportunity cost matters more than price. Rich people rarely ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask something else. What else could this money be doing? The cost of a new car isn't just the price on the window sticker. It's the lost opportunity. That same money could be invested, deployed into a business, used to acquire an appreciating asset, or simply kept flexible for future decisions. To a wealthy mindset, tying money up in a rapidly depreciating object is rarely attractive. Even if the amount feels small compared to their net worth, the principle still matters. Wealth is often maintained through discipline, not indulgence. Attention is a liability. Another reason wealthy people avoid new cars is something most people never consider: attention. A brand new luxury car attracts attention, and attention often brings problems. The wealthier someone becomes, the more they value privacy. Flashy purchases can draw unwanted curiosity, signal wealth to the wrong people, create expectations, and invite judgment or resentment. For many wealthy individuals, blending in is a form of protection. A slightly older car that looks normal provides freedom. Freedom from assumptions. Freedom from conversations. Freedom from scrutiny. True wealth doesn't need to announce itself. Status signaling versus confidence. There's also a psychological layer to this. New cars are often purchased to signal success. But signaling usually comes from insecurity, not confidence. People who feel the need to prove they've made it are more likely to buy visible symbols of success. Wealthy individuals who are secure rarely feel that pressure. They don't need validation from strangers. They don't need approval from peers. They don't need reminders of their own success. When confidence is internal, external symbols lose importance. How wealthy people actually handle cars. So if rich people avoid new cars, what do they do instead? Most follow one of a few strategies. Some buy slightly used vehicles. Cars that are 1 or 2 years old often retain nearly all the functionality of a new model, without the steep depreciation. Others lease, not because it's cheaper, but because it removes decision fatigue. No resale, no long-term maintenance concerns, no emotional attachment. Some wealthy families treat cars as purely functional tools. They focus on reliability, safety, and comfort, not status. In many cases, the car simply doesn't matter enough to warrant attention. It's just transportation. Old money versus new money behavior. This difference becomes even clearer when comparing old money and new money. New money often seeks visibility. It uses purchases to establish identity. Old money tends to do the opposite. It prioritizes longevity, privacy, and understatement. For old money, buying a new car every year doesn't signal wealth. It signals carelessness. The wealthiest families often keep assets for decades. They don't replace things unless there's a reason, and they certainly don't upgrade just because something new exists. Time is more valuable than objects. Another overlooked reason rich people avoid new cars is time. New cars require decisions, research, customization, paperwork, maintenance planning. To wealthy individuals, time is far more valuable than novelty. They would rather eliminate decisions than add new ones. That's why many wealthy people keep the same car for years, even when they could replace it instantly. The car works. It's comfortable. It doesn't require attention. That's enough. Luxury doesn't mean excess. There's a misconception that luxury always means excess. In reality, luxury often means ease. A car that starts every time, doesn't draw attention, requires minimal effort, and blends seamlessly into life. That's luxury to many wealthy people. Not the newest model, not the loudest design, not the most expensive upgrade, but the least demanding option. The quiet difference in thinking. At its core, this comes down to mindset. Most people use money to acquire symbols. Wealthy people use money to remove friction. Buying a new car often adds friction. Financially, emotionally, socially, and mentally. Avoiding it simplifies life, and simplicity is something money can buy, but only if you understand its true value. The takeaway most people miss. The biggest difference between wealthy spending and non-wealthy spending isn't what's purchased. It's what's ignored. Wealthy people don't chase upgrades. They don't rush to replace what still works. They don't measure success by novelty. They measure it by freedom, control, and stability. And that's why many of them quietly drive cars that look surprisingly ordinary. Not because they have to, but because they don't need to prove anything at all. And that's the real reason wealthy people think differently about cars. Not because they're cheap, not because they lack taste, but because they understand something most people never learn: money is a tool, not a toy. If this video changed the way you think about wealth, status, or spending, make sure to subscribe for more knowledge like this every week.